What is going on, everyone? This is Miles Dompier, and welcome to the 111th episode of Xbox Chaturdays. Today, I am stoked to be joined by the one, the only, Sir Samuel Tolbert. Sam, how are you doing on this beautiful, blessed Saturday morning or afternoon or whatever time it is for you around the world?
It's afternoon. It's 1:06 p.m. for me. It's way too hot and there's way too much pollen, and it just rained a couple of days ago, so everything is still muggy. So I am staying inside, where the air conditioner can just go full blast to combat all that nonsense. I'm not dealing with that. That's not happening.
Yeah, I moved to Washington recently, and I expect moderate temps over here in Washington, nice and cool. Summer days in the lowish 70s. It's been 90 degrees this week several times, and we don't have AC out here. It's Washington. It's not really an essential thing. So you boys been sweating. I've had to change into shorts to play Street Fighter 6 because Street Fighter 6 it gets me sweaty on an average day, on a normal day, a 90-degree day, you boys dripping sweat, all right? Dripping sweat, got the headband on, got shorts on, and that's how we have to endure, all right? Gamers out here have been struggling, Sam.
Yeah, you're going to have to set up like one of those big, semi-industrial fans, put it on a chair next to you so it's just blasting right there. Like, that's what you're going to have to do. You have to survive, man.
Just mullet blowing in the breeze,
Uh-huh. Yeah. Full Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, really just embracing it. But I'm excited to have you on. We have a lot to talk about this week. As a lot of you know, if you follow me on social media, I've taken the last couple weeks off of the show, so it feels good to be back. We're going to be diving into the Diablo 4 seasonal debate. We got the official confirmation of the name of Season 1, how it's going to play out. There's been some hot takes on either side about what Diablo should do, how Diablo should handle that, so we're going to be diving into that. We're going to be talking about new drops for Xbox Game Pass in July. We're going to be talking about new characters hitting Mortal Kombat 1. We're going to be talking about the PS5 Slim, the PS5 Pro, Xbox Series X2, Xbox Series S2, and what mid-generation console refreshes might look like this time around. Touching on our thoughts on the ABK preliminary injunction result, what that might look like, and so much more. But before we get into all of that, I know you hold the record for the most guest appearances on the show by a lot. Love having you on, but for the people tuning in for the first time or maybe don't know, give us a quick breakdown of who you are and where folks can find you.
Yeah, so my name is Samuel Tolbert, as most of you should know by now, like Miles said. But if you're new, welcome. I've been friends with Miles, and I've been working professionally, as you can see, very professional, incredible, off to a great start, for the last 4 years over at Windows Central and some of its sister sites. I've also been featured on places like Inverse, so, just been spread around a little bit. But my news review preview beat is at Windows Central. That's the home and hearth, right? And, Good to be talking about some stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot to dive into. We're going to have some fun conversations today. Some quick housekeeping before we get into the show proper. If you haven't already and you're interested, Xbox Chaturdays has a rad little Discord going. So there's a link in the description if you're interested. A lot of great people there. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, we're on the road to 5K, y'all, all right? We just smashed 2K. We're on the road to 5K, so if you haven't subscribed and you listen to the show, like the show, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. For the people joining us live, appreciate you tuning in. Like it, share it, all that good stuff. For the audio listeners, appreciate you as well. I know I don't shout you out as often, but I do appreciate everyone who listens to the audio versions. And if you want to show your support, that way you can leave a review for the show on your favorite podcast service. Some member shout outs here. The awesome folks who are channel members supporting the show. We got in the supporter tier, William Riggs, Huffy Bear CH, Sinful Sadie TTV, Goldshell WPR, Christopher Davis, Buddy McClure, Rachel, Derek Griffin Jones, V Simcoe, Anthony, Disciple of John Carpenter, and last but not least, my mom. In the loyalist here, we have John Grasula, Patrick, Nick W, and Assassin. And in the producer tier, we have Matt Valdez, Yodani Quezada, and Hargeet Chani. So yeah, as some of you know, if you follow me on social media, I've, had some family medical, a situation come up, and that's the primary reason I've been out the last couple weeks. Given the state of things, that there might be random weeks I'm out again. I'm not going to start the show with that, but if you want to stick around towards the end of the show, I'll give everyone a quick update on what's going on there. But before we get into all of that, let's start with the games we're loving right now, because that's a segment I've been enjoying quite a bit. I want to know, Sam, what games you've been playing and really connecting with lately.
So a couple different things relevant to our discussion. I am still playing Diablo 4. I kind of got interrupted with everything that happened, Xbox Showcase and then Summer Game Fest. So I kind of had to put Diablo 4 down for a bit just because it landed a few days before we got really into hot and heavy in the thick of it there. But I'm getting back to it, really enjoying it, really having a blast with it. Starting to take a while to level up, but I know it's going to be a long journey. The road to 100 there is it's a long ways. Like, what is it? Level 87 is the halfway point in experience, I think. Someone's going to correct me on that if I've got it wrong.
I think it's 85, if I remember right.
Okay, but it's high up. I know it's high up. So, hey, it's a lot of fun. Still been enjoying Street Fighter 6, still enjoying Tears of the Kingdom. Can't put those down. I've also been playing Final Fantasy 16, a game that I have strong opinions on, so I won't take too long here. I think Final Fantasy 16 has some incredibly high highs. I think it has some incredibly low lows. I think the boss fights, when these icons, which are basically gods, become corporeal and fight, the boss fights in this game, Miles, are unlike anything I've ever played before. This is what a Godzilla game should feel like, when these gods and titans are just grappling and throwing each other through mountains. It feels like they started with the icon fights and then built everything out from there. And there's always a unique twist. There's always a unique angle, It's really, really good stuff. There's a lot of Game of Thrones influence in like more of the story of the world. That's fine by me. I like Game of Thrones. I like the first few seasons anyways. I love A Song of Ice and Fire. So that's cool. I love that. I like the gameplay. The wider story writing, specifically the writing for a few characters, and I won't spoil anything. I won't go too far in depth if there's anyone currently playing, so you won't get spoiled. I'm not a fan of how the writing is handling certain characters and certain elements of that. I thought we were past certain stereotypes, specifically like when it comes to how women are treated in games versus men. It hasn't been quite settling well with me, but I haven't finished it yet. I'm like 90% of the way through, so maybe I'll feel differently by the end. But yeah, that's what I'm really, really diving in on right now.
I've almost pulled the trigger on Final Fantasy 16 a few times because of what you touched on, the spectacle. I remember one of the last trailers they did, they really honed in on the boss fights, the encounters, and you transforming into giant beasts and scaling other giant beasts. And there's all of these, just this visual splendor and this lush density to every single moment. And there's particle effects popping off, and every second and every frame is just a feast for the eyes. And those are the moments where I look at Final Fantasy 16 and say, hell yeah, dude, that looks like a blast. Historically, I'm really picky when it comes to Final Fantasy storytelling. And that's why I've been interested to hear that Final Fantasy 16 leans into Game of Thrones, has some more serious tones. But then, like you said, I've heard people say that the payoff isn't quite there from a storytelling perspective. And I will say, even though I've loved a lot of Final Fantasy games, almost never do they stick the landing. Even the best Final Fantasies of all time almost never stick the landing. The last act always falls apart. It's just the quintessential JRPG formula is just to have a finale that is nonsensical or bad. It's almost impossible that we see otherwise. Final Fantasy Tactics being one of the rare exceptions where that story just that story hits.
I think people would say Final Fantasy VI is an exception as well. I think that's generally regarded very well.
Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy Tactics. Some people would argue 7. I do love 7, don't get me wrong, but I do still think the end falls apart a little bit. But that being said, I have been more interested in Final Fantasy 16. Do you know how long it is? That's my main hurdle. Is my backlog is absolutely just exploding. And I don't know that I want to play a 50-plus hour mainline RPG.
That's fair. It's really tough to say because unlike basically every other Final Fantasy game, at least the recent ones like 7 Remake or 15, this is not really divided into chapters. It's not chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. It's just a long list of missions. There's like 68 main missions in the game. And then there's side quests and all. So it's really tough to gauge since I haven't finished exactly how long it is because of that. I will say I have been doing every side quest, every optional, beast hunt, every mission that I can do to get extra supplies and all that. I've been doing all of that stuff. And at about the 90% mark, at least according to my PS5, that's what it like says on the counter and all that, I have spent about 50 hours playing. So I think if you just did the main story, it would probably be like 25 to 30 hours, but then probably you're probably looking at another 30 to 35 hours on top of that if you want to do all the side quest and earn the trophies and all that.
I'm someone who loves a good 25-hour RPG. All right, that is, that can be the sweet spot. So yeah, it's on the back burner for me right now because I've been playing Ni no Kuni 2. I finally played that for the first time. I played the original on PS3. Absolutely loved the original. It was this cool mix of Studio Ghibli art. They directly partnered with the development team on it, and it was the turn-based RPG in the vein of almost Pokemon in some ways. There was creature collecting and battling. So I really loved the original, and then I heard really great things about Ni no Kuni 2, but didn't pick it up when it launched. But it's completely different. It is now just an action RPG, a full-up action RPG in the vein of something like the Tales series. And I was like, okay, well, I loved Tales of Arise, was amazing. I loved the Tales series. Traditionally, I love action RPGs more than I love turn-based. So I was like, you know what? It's on Game Pass. Let me give it a try. So I'm about 5 hours in right now, but the opening sequence of that game is so good and so ridiculous. So with no context whatsoever, the game opens and you see the president of, it's not the United States, but the president of the United States is in a limo. And he's driving across a bridge into basically Manhattan. And so he's got his special services squad with him. He's in the back of this limo. They're driving through. And then as they're crossing the bridge, you see a nuclear missile flying towards the city. And the nuclear missile hits the city, destroys the entire city, destroys the limo. So the opening sequence of the game is the president of the United States getting nuked. And you're like, what is going on?
Okay.
And then you wake up in a fantasy land, and rats are invading this castle. And so everyone has swords and shields, and you are a younger version of this president character with just a 9mm pistol. And so this rat goes to take the king, and you just shoot the rat in the eye with your 9mm. I'm like, what is this game? What is happening? And that's
it's like an isekai, or
kind of, sorta. I'm not deep enough to know how it's going to play out. Okay. My assumption is you died, and this is, I don't know, some fever dream as your brain dies. I don't know, but all of that happens within the first 15 minutes. And so it sets this tone of just, well, anything is possible in this game if that's how it's going to start. So I've been liking it. If you've played stuff like Tales, you'll be familiar with the combat right away, but it's fun. It's streamlined in a lot of ways, and the story has been ridiculous. I don't want to say it's necessarily been good so far, but it's been interesting because there's been a lot of, like I said, moments where you're just like, I need to know why this is happening. All right. I need to get to the other side just so I can understand the conclusion of the president getting nuked. Are we going to touch on that again? I feel like we have to touch on that again.
We got to circle back to that sooner or later.
Yeah, right? I hope at the end of this 50-hour RPG we get the conclusion of, why the president was nuked, what happened, is he alive, is he dead? But yeah, that's been great. So if you're looking for a decent action RPG on Game Pass, been having a lot of fun with that one. But now, let's get into the show proper. Let's get into our first topic, and that is the new games hitting Xbox Game Pass in July 2023. So as is tradition, Microsoft dropped its first coming soon post of July detailing the games hitting the service. So if you are an Xbox Game Pass subscriber, here is what you can play this month. We have Grand Theft Auto 5 on Xbox and Cloud, which is out now, back again, baby, for what? Is this the third time?
I think this, because it was there until like September or October last year, I want to say.
Yeah.
And I know it was there before. So I think Red Dead Redemption has been in one time only, but this is the third time for GTA 5, I think.
So if you haven't played this game somehow at this point, you can
one
play
of the 165 million people that's bought it. Jesus.
But yeah, those figures are staggering. Every time I see Grand Theft Auto 5 sales figures, I'm like, who doesn't own it? Who owns a video game console that doesn't own this game at this point? But it's here. So clearly, Rockstar likes it. Take-Two likes it in Game Pass, so it's back again. We have Sword and Fairy Together Forever. on Xbox, Cloud, PC. This is it's a solid action RPG. I checked this out. If you want something, again, flashy, Devil May Cry inspired combat with some RPG flair, that's out. We have McPixel 3 on Xbox, Cloud, and PC. It's out now. This game is pure madness. I don't know if you've played this, but this is essentially a mashup of WarioWare and MacGyver. So you're a character thrown in these environments. You have no context for why you're there. You're in a plane. People are knocked out. You can grab a dude. You can throw a dude into another dude. You can throw a dude out of the plane window, and then it progresses to the next sequence. And it's a puzzle action game where you have to do a sequence in the right way. But yeah, I think the game opens with you filling a room with poop or pee. It's not the most stimulating game in terms of the brain, but visually it's very stimulating. Commonhood, which is going to be on Xbox, Cloud, PC, that's coming July 11th, and this is a multiplayer community sandbox game. Insurgency Sandstorm, coming to PC on July 11th, which is a tactical team-based first-person shooter. Exoprimal, baby, coming to Xbox, Cloud, and PC on July 14th. And if you haven't played that, it's Earth Defense Force meets Overwatch with dinosaurs. And then Tectonica, which is coming to Xbox, Cloud, and PC on July 18th, which is a first-person factory automation game with crafting and gathering and some co-op launching in-game preview. Sam, how are you feeling about this list of titles? Anything in particular jumping out at you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a decent list. I think it's pretty, not average, but like, it's okay, right? It's fine. No one's going to say this is the best month. This is one of the top 5 months of Game Pass ever. I don't think that's going to be said, but it's all right. I know GTA 5 is going to be the big draw for the masses. Like, a lot of people are going to be very happy that's back in there. Me, I care about Exoprimal because it's just stupid enough. It's just stupid enough, but everyone that I trust who got in, I did not get to try the beta, but everyone I know who did, whose opinions I value, has said, yeah, this is actually fun. It's dumb, turn your brain off, but this could be really fun with some friends. So yeah, you know what, Game Pass, sure, I'll check it out. That's fine by me. I'm all right with that.
That's how I feel. This was a game I was going to buy either way, and I know not everyone was going to buy it because it's strange. It's a strange premise. It's kind of a throwback. It's very arcadey. Again, it reminds me a lot of Earth Defense Force. And a lot of people either aren't familiar with Earth Defense Force or maybe didn't necessarily love Earth Defense Force. But the overall pitch is you are a soldier and you are fighting a lot of giant bugs. Exoprimal is that fundamentally. You are a mech suit with an Overwatch-style kit of abilities, and you are fighting just thousands of raptors and T-Rexes and all of these dinosaurs. And that's the game. There is apparently some kind of narrative to it. I'm skeptical on what that's going to be and how that's going to land. But the overall pitch, it's a multiplayer game where you kill dinosaurs. And, you know, we don't get a lot of those big budget versions of that because, you know, people, it's hard to take risks. Sometimes those games don't pay off. And often those type of games don't get a huge budget. So to see Capcom really commit to this is exciting, and I'm really interested to see how it lands. And I think Xbox Game Pass is going to help that word of mouth because people are skeptical of this game, I think, in a lot of ways. But myself and a lot of people who have had a chance to go hands-on with it have walked away really positive. It's ridiculous, it's fun, it's flashy, and if you have a squad and you're looking for something really different right now in this year, it's going to be a great summer game. I think it's going to be a kind of a sleeper hit that builds momentum when more and more people check it out via Game Pass and play it. And I think it's a game that if it was a full standalone $60 game, maybe it wouldn't have a huge community out of the gate. But I think Xbox Game Pass is going to kind of be one of those examples like Outriders where it gets people talking. People who are skeptical weren't going to buy it. Their friends are saying, yo, dude, you need to play this. You need to check this out. And they say, all right, fine, I'll check it out. And I think that's going to be the power of Exoprimal. But that's the big one for me. When I look at this list of games, stoked on that. Sword and Fairy was another cool one because that's been on my wish list for a while. And I've been, you know, waiting for a decent sale. So I was excited to see that one. But again, Grand Theft Auto, another big draw. And it's interesting that Grand Theft Auto is coming back for a third time because we've had a lot of executives talk about Game Pass and what it means for games and what it means for sales. And clearly, Take-Two is seeing some sort of boost, whether it's microtransactions in-game or engagement, that's making them say, all right, Microsoft, you can have our big, like you said, it sold 160 plus million copies. They don't need to put it in Game Pass at all. They just don't. But there must be some sort of financial incentive for them to do it. Otherwise, they wouldn't keep doing it.
GTA Online, that microtransaction revenue. I think that's probably it. Because I know Strauss Zelnick, who I respect. I think Strauss Zelnick is a very intelligent individual. The CEO of Take-Two, he's talked before about how they don't see it as something where they want to put their games day one in Game Pass or any other subscription service. However, they do see value in older catalog titles. They do see value in like, oh, this has been out for X amount of years. Okay, yeah, put that in there. And
let's give it a little boost.
Yeah, who knows? Agree or disagree, they've got a formula that is clearly working for them.
Yes. You can't argue with the figures there, all right? You can't. My God. Xbox and PlayStation would literally kill someone to have a game that sells even half of that. Quick super chat here from Silent Cypher, who says, but Miles, I thought Jim Ryan said devs don't like Game Pass. Strange that GTA 5 would be coming back to the service given that very legit info. Yes, you're right. Jim Ryan said that unanimously, developers don't like Xbox Game Pass. He's talked to all of them, and they've all come back and said, Jimmy boy, Jimmy my man, Jimmy my dude, we have a fundamental problem with Xbox Game Pass, and you need to be the hero that saves us from the subscription service.
It's interesting. It's interesting. I mean, some publishers, I'm sure some don't. I'm sure that there are some who don't. I wonder which ones he's talked to. However, I look at Capcom, and Capcom's putting Exoprimal in day one, and then Path of the Goddess, their new IP, is coming day one. Sega is putting they put Persona, the Persona 3 and then Persona 4 Golden in their day one. Persona 5 as well, but that had already been on. That was already out.
Persona 5 Tactica, that's launching day
Persona
one.
Persona 5 Tactica, Persona 3 Reload, that's coming. Sega, Total War Warhammer 3. I know that's a PC game, but they put that in their day one. So Sega doesn't have a problem. Capcom doesn't have a problem. I don't know. It's interesting.
It's interesting. We got a lot of juicy information from the FTC hearing about how people feel about different deals, how people feel about exclusivity. But I do wonder, because I agree. I think there are either developers or publishers who aren't thrilled about what Game Pass means for their business. And I think there are some genuine questions and concerns about what that future looks like for certain types of games. I don't think that's unfair to say, because we're not seeing Resident Evil 4 remake, that's a guaranteed hit. Like that's
millions.
That's a guaranteed hit. We're not seeing that launch day one in Xbox Game Pass. But talking to people internally from Microsoft and talking to people about the model, they are trying to get every single game in Xbox Game Pass, and they understand that when they put a game in Xbox Game Pass, it needs to be mutually beneficial. And I think it's fair to say that that's not every game. Every game doesn't need Xbox Game Pass, and maybe every single game isn't going to get an inherent boost financially from being an Xbox Game Pass. Unless Microsoft is just looking at massive games, like we'll use an Elden Ring as an example. And I threw out a figure ahead of launch when people were speculating, will that launch in Game Pass? Because that was the big thing, is Microsoft had nothing big that year and they needed some boosts to Game Pass. And so people were like, well, maybe they'll be aggressive with a third party. I said it would probably cost $500 million to put Elden Ring in Xbox Game Pass. And people were like, no, that's too much. Like that's a huge ask. But then you look at the sales, you look at how many copies that game sold. And to offset that engagement, Microsoft would have to throw down stupid money, just really stupid, reckless amounts of money to secure those kinds of deals. And I don't know if that's the right call for anyone. So it is interesting. And I do think there are some questions about Xbox Game Pass in terms of how certain publishers perceive it. But like you said, Capcom, as a prime example, a publisher that's doing incredibly well, that's selling a ton of copies of games. They are planning to sell more copies of games this year ever than any other year in Capcom's history. And they're putting Monster Hunter Rise day one in Game Pass. They're putting Exoprimal in Xbox Game Pass. They're putting Path of the Goddess day one in Xbox Game Pass. So despite all of that, despite these deals, they're still planning to sell more copies of games than they've ever sold before. So there's evidence that it will work. And if Microsoft can demonstrate more of those with more high-profile publishers, I think you'll have more parties coming to the table and saying, all right, What can you offer me? Here's a game. We're cooking this up. You know, we're trying to gauge interest. We're trying to gauge how this is going to land with the community. What can Game Pass do for my game? And as long as Microsoft can keep giving compelling answers, they're going to keep getting high-profile games. Whether those games would sell 10, 20 million copies normally, usually from what we've seen so far, that's not the case. But that being said, that doesn't mean a game isn't successful. That doesn't mean a game won't have an audience. And I think that's important as we look at the current landscape of how people engage with games. That's it. I think that's all I got on Game Pass.
That's pretty fair.
Actually, quick PSA. Quick tragic news. Tragic news for the Xbox Game Pass camp. Tragic news for the best deal in gaming. They've officially raised the prices.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's of today, right?
As of, I think, yesterday.
Okay.
As of this week, Xbox Game Pass has gone up in price. All right, Xbox Game Pass, the standard version for console, has gone up to $10.99 from $9.99, and Xbox Game Pass Ultimate has gone up from $14.99 to $16.99. So a relatively small increase, but the first price increase for Xbox Game Pass. There are some notable exceptions. PC Game Pass, no change. I thought that was really interesting. No change on PC Game Pass. PC Game Pass is still $9.99 a month.
Yeah.
So what's up?
They've talked before about how PC is an area they want to grow, where like console is not stagnant, but like console is just, it's not growing much now at this point. I think that's going to change when games like Starfield launch, but regardless, I'll keep my opinion to myself there. You know, for now, like console growth has significantly slowed down. They've been open about that. PC growth is where it's at. So like not raising the price on PC for now, makes sense. I can see it.
Yeah, they're really, I don't want to say desperately, that's probably too aggressive, but they're really hyper invested in growing the PC audience. Yes, they really, really want that. And, you know, as we look towards the future with mobile and PC and publishers and big platform holders meeting players where they already are, PC is huge. PC is a huge audience that they need to secure. And they're in a position right now, I think we're seeing PlayStation kind of scramble as they're looking at that as well, where Xbox right now could be, of the big three, the PC player. And considering they're part of Microsoft, that should already be established. But
so it took way too long for that to be the case, is what I'll say. It took way too long.
The fact that they're getting just trounced and have been getting trounced by Steam and really Epic, which Epic has a small market share compared to Steam. It's strange that Microsoft hasn't really secured that PC audience, but they're trying, and that's why I think they are very hesitant to increase the price of Xbox Game Pass on PC. Whereas the console audience, they're engaged. As Phil Spencer said, they are the most financially committed to the platform. So you got that. You get the console tax. All right. Thank you for being a loyal customer. We are comfortable charging you more, because we know you're committed because you bought the box. So, hey, I don't love it. I'm not stoked about any sort of price increase. And I always talk about the console tax and how it's a weird, they say, oh, it's to offset the console itself, to subsidize the cost of the console itself. But then you hear data where people, if you buy a controller and 2 games, that covers the cost. So then why are we subsidizing it for the lifespan of this device? That's just me. You know, that's just where I'm at. But yeah, console players still have to pay for Xbox Live or Xbox Gold to play games online, even for first party games. So Sea of Thieves is the prime example I use. You can play Sea of Thieves on PC without Xbox Live, and you can get Xbox Game Pass cheaper on PC. So yeah, it's more expensive to play a game on console, which is weird to me personally. Sam, let's talk about Mortal Kombat 1. This year, oh man, it's been a year for fighting games, dude. Hot damn. We had Street Fighter 6 coming to the gate strong. I'm still playing that every single day. We had the announcement of Mortal Kombat 1. It's going back to its roots. It's going back to the first Mortal Kombat tournament. It's a sequel to Mortal Kombat 11 in some ways, but also a fresh slate for the franchise. They're taking it back to basics. A lot of the OG cast is coming back, and a lot of people have been wondering what that means for the total number of playable characters, and whether or not your favorite characters are going to be playable. And to compound that, we have the cameo system, which has added a weird wrinkle to the situation, because now you have playable characters and you have cameo characters, which are like assist characters. But then some of the cameo characters are playable characters, and people are I think, rightfully kind of confused about what this means. It's a little
confusing. Yeah, it's a little confusing.
This week, NetherRealm Studios held its first combat cast, which was a live stream, which gave players a glimpse of some story beats from Mortal Kombat 1 and announced 5 new characters, including Smoke, Rain, Cyrax, Sector, and Frost. So a lot of returning favorites. A lot of characters like Rain, who we haven't seen in a while, a hot minute.
When was the last time we saw Rain again?
Was it Deception? Has it been that long?
I'm going to look it up, actually, because I genuinely can't recall, dude.
Fact check me on that, but I think it might be Deception. It was the last time we've seen Rain in a Mortal Kombat game. But yeah, needless to say, we got some deep cuts from the Mortal Kombat Gambit, which is exciting. So here's the breakdown, because not every character in this list of 5 is fully playable, as we touched on. So Smoke and Rain are both fully playable. So Rain will be fully playable, while Cyrax, Sector, Frost are joining the game as cameo fighters. What's the answer? You get the scoop, the deets?
Okay, yeah. So he was DLC. I forgot about this for some reason. He was available as DLC in Mortal Kombat 11.
Oh,
I forgot that for some reason. Before that, he was last DLC as well in 2011. So not as long as I thought, but certainly he hasn't been a part of the main cast. Let's put it like that. He hasn't been a part of the initial roster in a very long time.
The launch cast. Okay.
And I know people are hyped for Smoke as well. I know he's like a dark horse, cult classic.
Yeah. So it's, again, it's exciting. It's exciting to see a lot of these classic characters come back. How are you feeling on everything we've seen from Mortal Kombat 1 so far?
Mostly pretty good. I think there, questions around the cast, of course, but we're going to kind of get into that discussion in just a moment. The combat looks great. The art style, Miles, the art style of Mortal Kombat 1 is perfect. It's detailed like 11 was, but it's not as gritty, I don't think, in my opinion, despite the gore, despite the presentation. It's very harmonious. It's simplified in a way. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's the way I see it. It looks simple. It does look like, okay, yeah, I see. You're going back to the roots. You want this to be less complicated, despite looking absolutely gorgeous running on Unreal Engine 4. It looks absolutely great. So I'm feeling positive. Feeling very positive so far.
Yeah, I think the word that comes to mind for me is clean. Because like you said, it isn't as dark and gritty as the previous game, but that doesn't mean it's, as you touched on, it's still very bloody. It's still very gory. It's still a very visceral fighting game. But they managed to clean it up. And that's important for fighting games, because you need to be able to read everything on the screen at every single moment. And I think Mortal Kombat 11, while I really, really liked, I did not like Mortal Kombat 11 as much as I liked Mortal Kombat 10. And so I'm really curious, because I haven't had a chance to go hands-on with this, where it's going to land in terms of feel. Because I remember when Mortal Kombat 11 launched, it was slow. It was weirdly slow. And that turned a lot of people off. And then when they did the big, the Aftermath update? They increased the speed. They changed the way the game felt. And then it felt a little more in line with Mortal Kombat 10. So I'm curious to see what the feedback has been between the people who loved the original feel of Mortal Kombat 11 and then folks like myself who like the speed of Mortal Kombat 10. What's your stance on this whole playable character versus cameo thing and the assist fighters and how that is presented so far and what that's going to mean for the game?
This is where I think this is my one issue. An issue perhaps is a tad strong. I don't like the way they've presented the information, Miles. I think it's a bit complicated that we didn't get a straight answer. Actually, we arguably still haven't gotten a straight answer, but for a while we didn't get a straight answer on, are cameo fighters separate or are they the same? And it turns out the answer is neither. The answer is actually somewhere in the middle, where all playable fighters are cameo fighters, but not all cameo fighters are playable. That's my understanding. Am I wrong on that? Am I
correct?
Again,
the way that they messaged it, especially at Summer Game Fest when they had the
Yeah.
gameplay demo, that made everything way more confusing. Honestly, I had way more questions on the other side of that gameplay demo about cameo fighter versus playable. But I think you've got it right. Where you can use any playable character as a cameo character, but there are cameo only characters that cannot be played.
See, that's weird. Like, I want to. Okay, so I'm going to play devil's advocate for a moment, and then I'm going to demolish my own argument. All right. So,
okay, beautiful.
Devil's advocate. Fighting games, getting the cast, getting the fighter reveals, who's going to be the first DLC, who's actually in the base roster. That's part of the hype. That's part of a fighting game. Not everyone can be in the game. Okay, not everyone. Look, I'm pulling for my boy Reptile. It ain't looking good. I'm trying.
Let me tell you real quick. Ed Boon, he loves to tease. Sometimes he just straight up trolls, but somebody dropped a picture of all of the ninjas and said, "Oh, there's a world where all the ninjas come back in this one, and all the ninjas will be playable." And then, in typical Ed Boon fashion, he quote tweeted it and said, "Yeah, I think that's a strong possibility." And then he put a lizard, like the lizard emoji. And I'm like, and then I just replied to him. I said, "I'm taking this as confirmation of Reptile, all right? And if he's not here, we're gonna have some words, because I'm a Reptile main, and when they took that away in 11, I was like, bro,
Reptile. It's been a minute. Another one where it's been a minute. So like, I get it. I feel the pain. If your main isn't there, if it's not, what would you say? Like Mylena, not even Mylena. No, because Mylena was last DLC for 11, so she's not guaranteed anymore. But like Liu Kang, Shao Kahn, Katana, like outside of those, it's always a scrap. It's always up for grabs. I get it. I understand. It's part of the thrill. So at the same time as I'm saying that, and like not everyone can realistically fit in, the cameo fighter system makes sense. Oh, we can just spin someone up, and maybe we can't get them in the full game, but like we can include them. We can have Reptile, maybe, as I'm just throwing an example. I hope he's a full playable character, but Reptile, okay, you can't play as him. You can tag him in real quick for an attack. Cool.
If he's a cameo, I'm gonna scream. All right.
Okay. Yeah, no, work with me, Miles. Work with my metaphor here. Work with my idea.
We're going back to the Smash PTSD, where your favorite character gets announced as an assist trophy, and you're like,
or a Mii Fighter costume.
Oh no!
Costume.
No, I can't.
Yeah.
But I am I'm bracing for that, for Reptile to be a cameo, and I just look at Ed and say, "You sick son of a bitch. You twisted son of a gun."
I get it. But like I'm saying, I understand the concept. I understand what they're doing. You can only have so many resources. However, doing it this way, where every playable fighter is a cameo fighter, but the reverse is not true, that confuses it. It's not clean cut to me. I think if cameo fighters should have just been their own category. It should have been, like the people who aren't playable, those are just the cameos. It should have been all or nothing. It should have been everyone who is a cameo fighter is playable, or no one is. But this weird middle ground, this is going to cause some confusion, big time.
And then even more confusion is, so Jean-Claude Van Damme was specifically listed as a cameo skin for Johnny Cage. So does that mean we can't actually play as Jean-Claude Van Damme in the playable version? And Jean-Claude Van Damme is only a cameo?
Right. And if that's the case, and we start getting into it with skins and all that, this is going to get out of hand.
So that's why a lot of us have questions. And I think those questions are fair. And I think at this point, unless we get a way more combat casts in the coming weeks, which it sounds like we'll get a few more, I think we're not going to know the answer until we have the game in our hands, really. And so I'm excited. I'm excited to see these characters come back. There has been a leak from somebody who's previously leaked fighting game rosters in the past. And so I've looked over the characters that are there. And I will say, I don't want to spoil it, but on this list, according to this individual, which, again, take this with a grain of salt or whatever, they had Reptile. I was like,
okay.
You combine that with Ed Boon himself slapping that Reptile symbol out there. And then, like I said, I'm just setting myself up for disappointment. If Reptile isn't there, or if Reptile, it's going to be, honestly, it's going to be worse for me if Reptile is there as a cameo fighter.
You think that's worse? Like
that's
you
gonna
think
hurt
you would
more.
prefer Reptile is just not there at all versus showing up as a cameo
if
fighter?
that's where I'm at. I'm sorry. If you're gonna do Reptile if you're gonna do me and Reptile that dirty, where Reptile is only a cameo,
I get it because that way, because if Reptile isn't there at launch, at least the potential is there for DLC. There's hope.
Yes, the dream is still alive. You take that away, dead. You kill it. Like when they did the reveal for Richter and Simon in Super Smash Bros. I was like, hell yeah, this blows the gate wide open for more Castlevania characters. Let's go. This is hype as hell. And then my first thought is, oh, they could do Alucard. Like that would be so hype. And then 2 minutes later, there's the Alucard's here, but he's an assist trophy. I'm like, the dream's dead. So yeah, like I said, for me and Reptile, it's gonna be significantly worse if he's just a cameo character. That's just disrespect. That's Ed Boon and the team saying they're cool, but they're not cool enough to be playable. All right, you can have them standing on the sidelines. That's fine. They can throw a little foot out every once in a while, but yeah, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt. One final question on this for you and everyone joining us live. By the way, if you are joining us live, digging the show, hit that like button, share it out. Let's have some fun here. What's the one character you want to see confirmed to be fully playable in Mortal Kombat 1?
Well, so actually, I'm with you on Reptile. That's the thing. Like, I love Reptile. Not quite a Reptile main. Sub-Zero. Come on, just special place in the heart and all that. You have to. But I'm with you on Reptile. That's the one where and it has been a minute. It has been a real minute. So hopefully, fingers crossed.
Reptile gang, rise up. Yeah, I think you and I are both unanimous. Reptile is the one character that has to come back in Mortal Kombat 1. I'm not buying it. All right, how about that, Ed? I'm not buying Mortal Kombat 1 if you don't give me a Reptile.
Boone, you hear that? $70 on the line.
That's right. So the difference between success and failure is Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat 1 is tipped on the edge of a knife right now.
Yeah, you're walking that razor's edge, all right? I will boycott. I will put out a petition online demanding people boycott Mortal Kombat. All right, Sam, let's get into one of the bigger conversations of the show today, and one of the bigger conversations in the community right now. Diablo 4, easily, confidently one of the biggest games of the year, the biggest probably Diablo release of all time. They haven't really confirmed that necessarily. They had the $666 million of revenue in the first, week or two. So it's doing incredibly well. The game is huge. The player base is huge. It's pulled in a new audience. A lot of people are playing Diablo 4 as their very first Diablo game. And so there's a lot of energy and excitement about Diablo. It's transitioned to an MMO, more or less. It's transitioned to a seasonal strategy inspired by games like Destiny. So there's Diablo 4, more than any other Diablo game, has positioned to be this ongoing live service game with seasonal content, with seasonal story content, with ways to evolve and grow over time. And that has a lot of people excited because Diablo historically has always done DLC, but usually we're waiting years. We're waiting 5 years or so to get a proper expansion. And it sounds like proper expansions are still coming to Diablo 4 down the road, but this is a way to give people content, give them reasons to come back over and over again every 3 months precisely, which is their quarterly plan for seasons. So we have some details about the first season. So before we get into our thoughts on all of that, I just want to break down exactly what has been confirmed for Season 1 of Diablo 4. So Season 1 is called Season of the Malignant. It kicks off on July 20th and will run for roughly 3 months. There's no stop date right now, but roughly 3 months is what we're expecting. If you want to engage with this season, you will need to beat the campaign. They said you will have to beat the campaign in order to engage with the seasonal content. They also have confirmed that Eternal Realm characters will be able to get the legendary aspects and uniques to drop during the event, which is nice. The season will feature Malignant Hearts, which can provide Malignant power bonuses to gear. So very much in a Destiny world, there's going to be a contraption that you collect resources from enemies, and then you can buff your gear during the season with these seasonal items. There's a seasonal journey, And progressing through that earns titles and items, including a Scroll of Amnesia, which allows you to reset your Paragon board and all of your skills instantly. There are some nice changes. Players won't have to refine the Altars of Lilith, and a lot of your potion and renown progress will carry over from your Eternal Realm character. You'll still have to do all the dungeons. All of that doesn't carry over, but it's not a clean reset there. And there's a 90-tier battle pass that can be completed by slaying enemies and engaging in seasonal challenges. So before we get into the big debate about the seasonal approach here, how are you feeling on the details surrounding Season 1?
A lot of things they're saying sound good outside of the actual structure. The problem is the actual structure for me is kind of a big deal. It's kind of the most important part, actually. So, but a lot of the other details sound good. Like 3 months? Yeah, that makes sense. 3 months seems good for a season length. Faster than that'd be a little much. Like if it was every 2 months, every 6 weeks, that would be, I don't know if that makes any sense for the timeline there. But also, giving it the themed name. I noticed that they're cribbing from Destiny there. Like
hard
season of the Malignant and like the key art they put up, like that is so Destiny. It's not even funny. Like
it's not even subtle. It's not even subtle.
No. So that makes sense. And then in theory, but this is where we're going to get into the debate, I like the idea of these bite-sized stories. I like the idea of, hey, we've promised you 2 full-size expansions that's going to be the big stuff that brings the massive new bosses and the new areas and the level cap increase, but it's going to take a while. It's probably going to, realistically, Miles, it's probably going to be, I would say, 2025 when that first expansion gets here. That's what I'm going ahead and thinking 2 years. So that's fine. Bite-sized story in the meantime, every 3 months that I can just sort of good, nice, I like it. Okay, that's in theory good, but this is where we get into my problem.
Yes. So if you are unaware, let me explain some of the points of contention right now with Diablo's seasonal rollout. So again, if you've played previous Diablos, Diablo 2, Diablo 3, if you played Path of Exile, you'll be familiar with this. But like I said, a lot of new players have been kind of taken aback by the fact that to engage with almost all of the seasonal content, the story, the limited story, the Malignant Hearts, and even the Battle Pass itself, you must create a new seasonal character. So like me, I'm level 73 or 4. I have 85 hours in Diablo 4.
Nice.
For me to engage with the seasonal content, I need to make a new seasonal character. So with that, they're talking about the stereotypical XP boosts and all the other, in my opinion, gross things that are attached to the average battle pass. Because they're saying, oh yeah, progressing through the season will be faster because there's boosted XP, XYZ. But that's the current situation here. The other reality of Diablo 4 is it's significantly bigger than any other Diablo game. Playing through it takes way longer. You can skip the campaign with seasonal characters. You can skip the campaign when you do a second playthrough, but the overall scope of the map, the overall scope of the content is so much bigger than any previous Diablo game. So there's a lot to do, and a lot of people are feeling slightly jaded about the fact that they have to re-grind every single season if they want to experience this. There is no option to take your Eternal Realm character and engage with the Battle Pass or engage with the story content. That's not an option that you get at all. And so that's where we stand, is there's this, I would say, hard divide between classic fans of Diablo and new fans who feel that the seasonal approach is either fine the way it is, this is the way it's always been, and this is the way it should always be, damn it. And then the new fans who are just like, I'm sorry, what? You're blatantly ripping off Destiny, but not quite. It's like ripping off Destiny, but then still making everyone make a new character and restart the game over. It'd be like if Destiny was like, hey, you know that character you've been working on for a long time? That's getting wiped every season if you want to play the seasonal content. Because those are the parallels. That is just the reality of the current state of Diablo is now an ongoing MMO inspired heavily by Destiny. And it's caught in this middle ground where it needs to appease old fans and pull in new fans. And I think it's done both. It really has successfully done both.
Up till now, yes, definitely.
Up till now. But now comes the debate. We're at the clash. And I need to know where Samuel Tolbert stands on these fighting lines.
So when I say this, I want to be very clear because seems to be getting lost, even when I'm talking with like other colleagues or people who do like the old seasonal approach. I want to be clear. I understand why you like it. That seems to be getting lost in this discussion. I understand what Diablo 3 did, even if I didn't engage with it to the extent that other people did, who just made a character every new season. They did everything. Like, I get it. I understand what it did. I understand that you want to keep that aspect. I really do. The problem is that's not what Diablo 4 is. I'm sorry. Just at its core, I'm not going to be argued off this. Diablo 4 is not doing what Diablo 3 did. Diablo 4 is trying to be Destiny 2. That is what this game is trying to be. We joked about like cribbing the seasons, but seriously, even just the story structure of having a new story every season to fill you over until the big expansions come out. Sounds like another game, that I can think of. And that's fine. That's good. I think that's a good idea. I think that makes sense to keep Diablo ongoing. The problem is people get invested. You said you've put 85 hours into your Diablo 4 character. I'm sorry. It's just weird to then expect you to say, okay, yeah, no, you're putting that to the side. This other story, your character doesn't get to experience this story. No, they're not going to do it. And I know they tried to downplay it because I know in the blog post it was like they emphasized it's a standalone story. So they tried. You can already see they're kind of trying to brace the language to soften the blow. It doesn't matter. The sorceress that I've invested, I haven't played as much as you, but I've invested like 60 hours in my sorceress. I want to play a new story with her. I don't care if it's big or small, if it's the seasons or the expansions. I want to play it with her because she's the one I've gotten attached to. I get that the old seasonal model allowed you to, encourage you to do these crazy experiments and all that. And I don't want to take that away from anyone. I get that that was special. I get that that model makes sense. I get that it appeals to the hardcore, but tying it in to earning things on the battle pass and earning things in, completing new storylines and new quests and new bosses, it doesn't make sense. Miles, I'm sorry. It just doesn't make sense. If they wanted to make it a separate thing that people could do to earn even cooler rewards and other bonuses, I think that could have worked. That could have worked in some regard, sub-balancing that out some way. But I haven't hit level 100 yet. So you're telling me when this new season starts, I have to put my character aside. No, I can't because I haven't finished the campaign yet. So once I finish the campaign, I have to put that character aside, stop working towards level 100. I have to work on it with this other new character who I'm going to throw away after 3 months. And then that's how I earn all the battle pass stuff. And then you use the transmog system to get those like cool looks and rewards on your main character. Is that how I understand it? Is that like the basic idea? I want to make sure I'm not like misrepresenting anything.
Yeah, that's essentially it. Yeah, every season will introduce legendary aspects, which are going to be special perks. And so they've made changes. So I do want to commend them on some of the changes they've made.
The renown as well, I think they changed. Yes.
Yeah, so originally none of the renown was going to have to carry over. You're going to have to get every goddamn altar of Lilith every season. No. And none of that was going to carry over. Your potion progress, you're going to have to regrind that every single season. And it's miserable getting all of the altars of Lilith. Again, you don't have to, but the fact that they were going to make people regrind that was absurd. It made no sense whatsoever, regardless of how you feel about seasons. So they said, okay, yeah, you're going to be able to pick one character and transfer that stuff over. So you don't have to worry about that. So that's a nice change. They were also going to say, oh, your Eternal Realm characters don't get the legendary aspects or uniques until the end of the season. So they were going to make playing your Eternal Realm characters during the season completely pointless originally. Now they're saying, okay, you can earn the legendary aspects, you can earn the uniques during the season while playing your Eternal Realm character. So they have made those changes.
I gotta interject real quick. So is it going to be like you earn those aspects like the ones you get from clearing the dungeons, and then you can use those and imprint them on pieces of gear?
I assume they would just drop via gear. I assume they would just be incorporated into the gear roles, and you would just have a chance to, while you're playing the game, normally in the Eternal Realm, get those aspects. Is my understanding.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. Continue.
But yeah, so they have made some changes based on the feedback, because, like I said, it was going to be just a complete clean wipe every single season. So they have listened to some of the feedback and made some changes, but there is a hard divide, and I have played every single Diablo. When I talk about how I feel about this, I've had people try to misinterpret where I'm at as a Diablo fan. I've played every single Diablo 2 is the game I played more than any other. I have more playtime in Diablo 2 than any other game. I bought Diablo 3 different times. I bought it on PC day one, bought it on 360, and I bought it on Xbox One. I've almost bought it on Switch as well. I've engaged with seasons. I fully understand how seasons have worked in the past, and historically, I haven't really had a problem. It's a fun incentive to get people to re-experience the game. Like people talk about, there's a fun, satisfying loop with replaying a season. So for the people who like it, I understand why you like it. I'm definitely not saying you shouldn't like it. It shouldn't be that way. But then also I look at previous games, and the entire loop of those games was playing them over and over again on higher difficulties. Diablo 3 especially, that was the loop, is you play through it over and over, you get a higher difficulty, you get better gear. And that's not the loop of Diablo 4. They've fundamentally gotten rid of that. That's not the loop anymore, and it's way more of an investment to replay through this game and to re-experience this game. And then we're not even going to have, because you can skip the campaign. And so now I wonder if it's just going to be like a dungeon grind on the other side of this and what that looks like. So I do have a lot of questions, and I'm conflicted because, you know, I want Diablo to be different. And that's the problem, that because Diablo could just mirror Destiny or mirror any other live service game and just be that exactly. And the problem I think Diablo finds itself in is it's not committing either way. It wants to be the live service ongoing game, but it also wants to be the hardcore Diablo experience for hardcore Diablo fans. And I think really any game that caters almost exclusively to the extreme most hardcore, that's usually not in the best interest of the game. It's in the best interest of the most dedicated fans who are going to play it constantly, but that is such a small percentage of it, especially when we look at the new players. So there's just going to be this huge drop off where people are like, well, I thought this was something else. I kind of promised other features in terms of what this game delivered and what the roadmap was going to look like. And that's not what I want. Now that's fine. People are going to drop off. People always drop off. I just hope that down the road we have more of a compromise where some seasons I will feel like creating a new character, engaging with the new content from scratch, and I think that'll be fun. I think that's great. But when you tie the battle pass to it, when you tie the limited cosmetics to it, some of that stuff I'm going to want, but just not care enough to make a new character. And I think that's where I'm a little frustrated that the battle pass specifically is only tied to seasonal characters. I would love to be able to just casually boot up my Eternal Realm character, progress the battle pass, unlock some stuff without saying, all right, I guess I'm committing to a new character. Because let's be real, there's so many games coming out when season 1 launches. We're in the busiest time of the year for video games. And so I look at Diablo after just spending 85 hours and say, am I gonna do that again right now? Probably not. Probably not. And so yeah, I'm conflicted. I see both sides. I'm not really hardcore in either way. I just think they could and should do a better job compromising. Again, I know the hardcore, like, this is the way it's always been. Have you not played Path of Exile or Diablo? I have. My God, I have played thousands of hours of them.
But here's the thing. Diablo 4 didn't get new fans by doing exactly what Diablo 3 and 2 did. It just didn't. Diablo 4 is special because I can just recommend it as a game for someone to pick up who isn't into the seasonal grind. A friend just who asked me recently was like, Sam, I've never played, I played Diablo 3 a little bit, never played the other two. Should I get this just because I want a good RPG? I just want to play through the story. The writing seems cool. The art design seems cool. It's like, yes, I can just recommend it to someone because they're going to spend 40, 50 hours just playing the main story.
Yeah.
So I understand where the hardcore are coming from. I really do. I do get it. And I don't want to sacrifice all of that. But I do think it's a little disingenuous to not hear what we're saying. That's my perspective. My
problem is it just feels arbitrary. Like when people say this is the way it's always been, I really cannot stand that argument when they've fundamentally changed so much of what Diablo is. This is the way it's always been, but no, the core game itself is not what Diablo has always been. It's just not. And so if they're going to make changes, why can't they make more changes? And so again, I don't want to take away from the core experience, and I still think that the seasonal reset is a core component of how people engage with Diablo. I'm not advocating we take that away. I just think there are too many arbitrary hurdles and walls that say you can't play the game this way. you can't do this. I don't always want to make a new character. Sometimes I will feel like it, but the fact that I always have to be able to engage with the seasonal content in Diablo is going to make me not want to engage with the content with it. Really,
it's going to make me very picky. Instead of doing it every season, it's going to be, oh, are there some cosmetics I just can't live without? Okay, fine. I'll grit my teeth, put myself through it, use the transmogs to get them on my main character. But I'm not going to play every season. I'm going to like pick the ones that appeal to me really strongly. And otherwise it'll be like, okay, once I get you to level 100 sorceress, we'll wait for the expansion.
Yeah, and that's
a couple of years.
I originally planned to engage with every single season of Diablo because I thought it was going to be this is how they're presenting the story. This is how they're having the ongoing narrative. And I imagine they're going to tie these into the DLC and the expansions. And so I was fully planning to engage with every single one. But now I'm like you, I'm going to have to pick and choose because it's, again, the biggest point of contention comes from the Path of Exile community. And a lot of the Path of Exile fans are basically like, oh, yeah, this is exactly what I want. And that, good for you. Good on you. I like Path of Exile so much less than Diablo. So much less. Onboarding is terrible. It's not a friendly experience for the average player. It's if you are an extreme hardcore player, there's stuff for you, but that is such a small percentage of the community. And when we look at Diablo and what it could be and what it hopefully will be, if you alienate all of your new players, they're not going to buy the battle pass. They're not going to engage with the content. And then they're not going to have that recurring revenue that you need to really support an ongoing game. And so if they don't get that return, they're going to scale down the scope of the seasons. They're going to scale down the scope of content. And despite all of their 10-year plan or whatever, that only works if the game keeps making a lot of money. And as soon as it stops making a lot of money, they don't give a damn. So I look at the Battle Pass especially, your main revenue driver, and I look at them segmenting that, and I say, just financially, why? Why on earth would you do that? It doesn't make sense. But that's just me. Yep. And as we've seen from a lot of people on social media, people feel very strongly either way. There are people who say, this is awful. This is so stupid. I can't believe they would do something so stupid. And then you have the hardcore longtime fans. And again, I classify myself as a hardcore longtime fan, like thousands of hours of Diablo. But even I look at this and say, I don't know that this is it. I don't know that this is the way. And I think so much of it could be alleviated if they just found some option for Eternal Realm characters to engage with some of this. And again, the core loop, the whole malignant gear system, all of that is fundamentally built with starting a new character, and that's how everything's balanced, blah, blah, blah. I understand. I fully understand how it works, but that's just going to be the conflict, I guess, of Diablo moving forward.
Yep.
Is that balance of, and you have the new Paragon board system, which is designed for ongoing play. The Paragon board,
that was the entire point, right?
Yes, is you just have that just progress forever that goes on, and I was excited about that.
Same. I thought it was a smart balance, very similar to like what Borderlands does, where after you've hit a certain level, you just I can bump this up by 1%. I can bump this skill by 1%.
Yeah, so
makes sense. That, perfect.
You're level 100, sure, but you still have that progress, and that's meaningful. The rune system's great. It has like huge build changing mechanics built into the Paragon system, but I feel like just a tiny fraction of people are going to bother engaging with that if they have to respec and restart every season.
You got to keep making a new character every 3 months. When are you going to have time for that?
Yeah. So I think you and I are about the same page. Again, for people who are in the chat, listening live or watching after the fact, would love to hear where you stand on all of this. Sure. Again, I think both of us aren't extreme in the sense that we want the seasonal resets to go away. I do think they are an important pillar of Diablo. I just think times and mechanics have changed quite a bit since Diablo 3. And ignoring that seems odd.
Well said, Miles. Well said.
Oh, Lucius is saying after level 100, you don't continue to get Paragon points. Oh. Well, then why not?
I mean, Why not one, but also, okay, but it takes forever to get to level 100. And a lot of people like myself, like Miles, still have not hit level 100. So even if that's the case, like, I think the general point still stands. Like,
yeah, because they did the skill tree divide. So you stop, is it level 50 that you stop getting skill points?
50 is the last.
And then they
point,
transition that to the Paragon. So I guess there is a cap at 100 for the Paragon, which again, then yeah, I guess once you hit level 100, what do you do? What do you do? Make a new character then, I guess? I don't know.
I mean, when do you have the time? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how they respond after this first season.
Yeah. So a lot of us have the Ultimate Edition, so we've already prepaid or pre-engaged with the season 1 pass. So I'll be curious. I think once people really see what this looks like and how this plays out, we'll have a better idea of where people really stand. And if I can breeze through it in 2 weeks, I probably won't care as much. But if it is going to be
even a month, I would say.
Yeah. But if it's going to be 50 hours to finish it, then
Baldur's Gate 3 and Starfield are right around the corner. We'll see.
Yeah. Super chat here from Yodani, who says, want to play as a skin of Dan Ford and saying toasty over and over again.
That's good. That's good.
Oh, so that super chat brings up a question that I have. What do you think the theme of the DLC guest characters is going to be this time around? We had horror in Mortal Kombat 10, and then we had 80s action heroes in Mortal Kombat 11.
Right.
What's one? What's going to be the gimmicky theme?
Well, one seems to be superhero. Well, okay, if we believe the leak, and Jez and Alex had sources on that, so seems like it's probably true. And then we had that, what was it, Amazon Italy or Amazon France, one of the two had that leak description that backed up one of them. So if you want to believe the leaks, if not, turn back now and mute for 30 seconds. It seems like it's anti-hero superheroes, because Omni-Man is in there from Invincible. Great show. Go watch it. And then Homelander from The Boys is in there. Also a great show. Go watch it.
Yes.
So it seems like that's going to be the theme. Is like corrupted evil superheroes. Which does beg the question of, like, who else fits that theme, if that's the case?
Yeah, exactly. That is an interesting question. Who else?
Maybe like, I don't know. He's lighter than the others, but maybe like the Punisher.
Punisher would be dope. Yeah.
Ghost Rider.
Because Spawn's was Spawn in the last one?
Spawn, I swear, was in Mortal Kombat 11.
I could be just pulling that out of my ass, but I want to say
entirely possible. But
Spawn was around, and Spawn fits that archetype, but he's already been there, so probably not Spawn.
I'll find out. Of course, I could also just be thinking of Soul Calibur and having a brain part.
DS Omen.
No, he was in Mortal Kombat 11. Yeah, no, we're correct.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I'm not totally making shit up. DS Omen with the super chat says, "Where's the Fallout 4 next gen upgrade? Gamescom? Question mark. That's a good question.
Okay, we know Go ahead, Miles. Sorry, I
was just gonna say we know we're not getting a new Fallout really anytime soon. So a nice enhancement upgrade would be a nice way to fill that gap.
Right. I mean, Bethesda has said it's happening. Bethesda Game Studios last year said they're doing for Fallout 4 what they did for Skyrim, is essentially the way they put it. Like, we're going to do, proper 4K, 60 FPS on Series X and PS5, but also there's going to be like new curated Creation Club content as well. That Creation Club is like where Bethesda's team overlooks like very good mods and approves certain stuff, and they did that for Skyrim Anniversary Edition. It was very good. That's how we got fishing.
I was gonna say they're adding fishing to Fallout 4.
Hey, dude, that'll get me back in. I'll fish in Fallout 4. Give me like a fishing competition who can catch like the most corrupted fish out there. Like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. So where is it? A lot of people thought it would be like earlier than Starfield. I always thought it was going to be later. I always have said that it's going to be sometime after Starfield. I think it's going to be an end of the year treat. I think it's going to be like November, maybe on the anniversary of Fallout 4. Because that was was that late October or early November? It was November, wasn't it? Fallout 4?
Let me tell you right now, Fallout 4 release date. November 10th.
November 10th. Yeah, there you go. So November 10th, 2023. That would make perfect sense for me to do the update there.
Just a nice little anniversary drop. Yeah. So
exactly.
It's something that's easy. It's something that could come at any time. But I imagine, as we've seen with Bethesda historically, if they can, get people to buy a game again, repackage, resell something with some engravements, they're doing it. They're going to make it happen. So if there's a desire, and it sounds like there's definitely a desire for it, it'll happen. It's just a matter of when. Super chat from Silent Cypher, who says the DLC will be Teletubbies or Yo Gabba Gabba. Just watching the Teletubbies just get brutally chopped in half.
Just ripping Tinky Winky's head apart.
Thumbing Tinky Winky's eyes out. Yeah. All right, Sam, let's talk about new consoles, new hardware. We've been listening to the FTC versus Microsoft saga. There's been a lot of documents submitted as part of this preliminary injunction hearing as well. And people have been going through some of the documents submitted more recently. And something they've uncovered is a document from Microsoft that outlines PlayStation's plans to launch a PS5 Slim in 2023 for $400. The document doesn't source where this information comes from, basically who this information is coming from, but they are saying, that PlayStation is launching a PS5 Slim in 2023. So that's got a lot of people speculating on the old PS5 Pro rumors, whether or not PlayStation will launch a PS5 Slim this year. So I wrote an editorial on Windows Central this week about that and what it means for Xbox. And so I want to have that conversation with you in the community about what mid-generation console refreshes could look like or will look like this generation. Because we know things have been a little bit weird. The rollout's been slower. We've had the pandemic, which delayed development. There was chip shortages. There were hardware shortages.
Right.
And it really feels like it took well over a year or two for this generation to really begin in earnest. And now that we're at the start, what feels like the authentic start of this generation, people are already talking about new consoles. And historically, if we look at the past, roughly 3 years or so, last generation, we got the PS5 or the PS4 Slim. So there is some sort of precedent that says these companies every couple of years want the new hardware refreshes. With someone who has retail experience in that world, I will say that the need for that is about retail real estate. The reason you do a refresh is to get a new marketing push in the market and to get a new pop in stores where people see a new SKU on the shelf. You get more slots on the shelf because now you have multiple consoles. And there is this retail desire for that. But we know traditional retail has shifted. And up until very, very recently, you couldn't even see a PS5 or an Xbox Series X in stores. They just weren't on shelves until very recently. So I want to talk to you about all of this. And let's start with the PS5 Slim.
Right.
Do you think, regardless of Microsoft's statements or not, that PlayStation could launch a new PS5 variant before the end of 2023?
I think it's possible. I'm not convinced it's happening this year. I think it's absolutely happening. Of course it's going to happen. I'm not convinced it's happening this year, but it's possible. We know from Tom Henderson and his leaks, that's where a lot of the more accurate, shall we say, PS5 Pro rumors, or at least the ones I think are more accurate, have come from. He talked about how Sony's going to be launching a model without the disk drive and then the optional disk drive attachment. I think Sony probably wants to simplify their process. They probably just okay, we only want to make one PS5. Because I don't know if anyone has noticed this. It's still impossible to get a PS5 digital by itself. You can get the God of War bundle. There is the God of War bundle that you can go get for $460, $470, maybe depending on your market, exactly what that transfers to. But a PS5, digital by itself, impossible. You can never find them. They're never in stock for long. I think Sony wants to correct that because obviously margins on digital only are going to be higher. Obviously, if you can sell people, just one console and then, there's this disc drive. If you want that, if you need it, you can buy the add-on. It makes sense. So I think they're going to try and do that. I'm sure they wanted it out this year. I'm not convinced it is out this year. but it's possible.
That's where I'm at. It's possible, sure. And if we look at the history of PlayStation, it's in their strategy to have one ready for this year, roughly.
Yeah.
But then we have to look at the reality of this year, and PlayStation shipped the PSVR 2 earlier this year, and PlayStation is planning to launch the Project Q, their handheld device. So PlayStation already has 2 hardware launches in this calendar year. The idea of them throwing in a third, while not impossible, seems like a tremendous undertaking. And when it comes to holiday performance, if they can do that, if they can successfully have the PSVR 2, the Project Q, and a PS5 Slim on shelves this holiday season, that's going to be a massive holiday season for PlayStation. Huge. So much money, so much potential there. And I'm sure their shareholders would be stoked if they can pull it off. But given everything, given the chip shortages, given the fact that both Xbox and PlayStation have raised console prices in recent months, that suggests to me the idea of coming up with a new iteration, unless they've found a much cheaper solution for some of the internal components, unless they've dropped the weight significantly so that shipping costs are down. It's hard to imagine a new console hitting the shelves given everything, given the state of this generation. But that being said, I do think we are in a timeline where within the next 12 to 24 months, I think PlayStation and Xbox will both have some variants hitting the shelves. And that's when we get into the rumors of the PS5 Pro, which have been ongoing for quite some time. When we look at PlayStation iterating, I'll hit you with one question here regarding the PS5 Slim first. If PlayStation has a PS5 Slim, and let's say it's $400, which is in line with the digital edition. Does that iteration put any pressure on Xbox to iterate the Series X? A lot of people said
I don't think so. Not with the Series S as well. I look at it and be like, yeah, I'm sure Microsoft would prefer to get a slimmer Series X out. I'm sure if they could, they would like to do a digital only Series X. But like, do they need? No, they don't need to. Their focus should be the games. Next 8-9 months, like deliver Starfield, deliver Forza, deliver Hellblade, deliver Avowed. That's your focus.
They need those console selling games to hit the shelves. And again, a lot of people are looking at the Xbox Series X and saying, a discless version of that would make sense if they could drop the price. And I agree, if they could drop the price down. And again, I don't think this is coming soon, but if they could get it at $400, and I think that's probably what they would wait for, is they wouldn't bother to iterate the discless version of the Series X unless it could be a notably cheaper price point. And I don't think that's coming this year. I don't think so. They announced the Series S, 1 terabyte. That is the only console iteration Xbox is dropping this year. I think that has been made clear. That's dropping in September. That's their holiday pop. That's their, hey, you don't have an Xbox and you're excited about Starfield, here you go. Get this little Johnny.
You can install more than Starfield now.
You can have more than 3 games installed at one time. So I agree. I don't think there's a huge need right now from that when we look at the PS5 Slim to what Xbox could do to answer. But the PS5 Pro is a much more interesting conversation because at the start of this generation, Xbox said, Phil Spencer specifically said that they won't be beaten on price or power. And for the most part, we had the Series S and Xbox Game Pass, which has confidently secured Microsoft as the value console right now when it comes to next-gen machines. And on paper, the Xbox Series X is more powerful. There have been tech analysis and side-by-side comparisons that show that maybe that's not exactly the case, or people aren't utilizing that power. So they're already teetering on that power throne, really, because a lot of games have proven that that's not obvious, or it's not being demonstrated through the games. And even if it is more powerful, it doesn't matter if the developers aren't utilizing that power or understand how to utilize that power. So Microsoft already is kind of teetering on the edge of that power narrative in a lot of ways. And so if PlayStation does have plans to ship a PS5 Pro in 2024, which I think could be a genuine possibility, and then when we look at that, the reason I think that's more of a possibility is because you have Xbox right now who is having developers target 2 SKUs, the Series S and the Series X. Innovative, bold strategy. It's paid off in a lot of ways. It's also an ask from development teams. Regardless of the capabilities, the reality is it's more work. It's notably more work. PlayStation right now has had the one SKU. Developers can target the one SKU, and that gives them a benefit when it comes to the working relationship of developers targeting those specs. They can really hone in on those specs. We've seen people from Xbox talk about exclusivity with Starfield and what that allows them to do with the hardware. But we could be in a world where PlayStation positions the digital or the Slim much closer to the Series S, and then releases a PS5 Pro, which is notably more powerful than the Xbox Series X. And if we're in that scenario, do you think that puts genuine pressure on Xbox to answer that? Where there is a world where Xbox in the console space doesn't have an obvious advantage anymore.
I think so, yeah. I think you can go a year. Basically, that's the way I view it, Miles, is you can go a year because the One X came out a year later than the PS4 Pro, remember. But a lot of people ended up waiting. There was a lot of hype around the One X. More, I would argue, than there was around the PS4 Pro because it was just, oh, this is going to be such a leap. This is such a big deal.
The world's most powerful console.
Right. Yeah, you remember. We don't have to rehash it all. You remember as well.
Yeah.
So I think they can go like a year, but then you talk about 2 years, 3 years. Well, supposedly, according to Microsoft, next gen is coming in 2028. I don't know. Maybe it could go a little longer than that. We'll see. I think it's 2029, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what ends up happening. I don't think they want to cede 3-4 years to PlayStation on a power crown. They definitely don't want to do that. So that's going to cause pressure. They're going to be pressure to come up with some sort of answer there. However, I think, Miles, that there's interesting questions facing both Microsoft and Sony about this, because here's the difference. Last generation, with the One X and the PS4, or excuse me, the Xbox One, the PS4, prices were falling.
Yes.
There were discounts, not bundles where we're tacking on the price of the game in addition. $400 Slim,
no,
PS5.
you would get the game for free.
God of War for $70. No, you were getting the game for free by now. There were discounts by now. That's not happening here.
Those prices are, in fact.
If they're going up outside of the US. Microsoft held on longer than PlayStation did. They held on, about a year, 11 months, something like that, because it was close to this time last year when PlayStation raised the prices on the PS5. But Microsoft eventually has relented now outside of the US, and I think maybe a couple of other countries like Brazil and Japan. Maybe there were a couple other countries.
They already raised the price in Japan, though.
That's right. That's a good point. So yeah, the prices have gone up. So I think that makes it a little weirder. I think that makes it a little stranger to then say, okay, we got this, the PS5 Slim or PS5 Digital, whatever they end up calling it at that point, is $400. Now the PS5 Pro is out. Is that $600? Is that more than $600? Because they gotta provide a substantial leap in power to make it worthwhile. That's the other thing. Even the PS4 Pro, which was weaker than the One X, weaker than Project Scorpio, as it was called at the time, and all that, it was still like, okay, reconstructing, we can get you a 4K image. We can get you HDR. There was an obvious benefit. They demoed like Horizon Zero Dawn. They demoed Call of Duty Infinite Warfare and a couple of other games. And like, here's a patch for Uncharted 4. They showed you what it was. With this, what's the obvious benefit going to be? Is it going to be like ray tracing in 60 FPS? If so, that's not a small bump. That's going to be a big bump to get the hardware cranked into overdrive enough to achieve that. So are we looking at a $200, $250 per delta? Is that the price delta we're looking at? I think that's a hard ask. I don't know the answer here. I'm asking a lot of questions because I just think this is a weirder, tougher situation than we were in last time. If they want these things to look reasonable when Pro models come around, when the Xbox Series Z or whatever and the PS5 Pro come out, the prices on these machines we have right now need to start falling, not increasing. That's my issue. That's
the wrinkle here. And so I know these companies have plans years out. So here's my tinfoil hat conspiracy regarding some of the PS5 Pro rumors is I 100% believe that was the plan, to have a PS5 Pro out within a couple years. I honestly think that Xbox, when they changed the naming convention to the Series S and the Series X, they had every intention on earth to iterate faster. They even had Xbox All Access, which mirrors cell phone plans, 1-to-1, 24 months. You get the console, you get Xbox Game, you get the subscription for 1 month or a low monthly payment over the span of 2 years. I think they had every intention, both of these companies, to iterate faster and have more iterations hit the shelves. But like you said, all of these wrinkles when it comes to chip shortages, when it comes to price increases, they haven't been able to bring the prices down. And as you touched on, it's been the exact opposite. Prices are only going up. That is not conducive to new iterations of hardware. It's not the reason you make a new hardware iteration is to have a different price hit the shelves or have a meaningful upgrade hit the shelves for a similar price. If PS5 and Xbox Series X want to do meaningful pro models right now, $700 in my eyes is the minimum that you would see a tangible upgrade to performance. $700. And that's a big ask. $500 was, already an increase over what we have seen traditionally in the console space. Excluding the Xbox One and the camera situation, which they were roasted for. They were just roasted for that. Customers did not engage with that. And so Xbox took that into consideration with the Series S. They have the budget console, $300. That is a steal. That's a bargain. And so with the Pro, we would need a significant upgrade to justify it existing in general. And right now, given everything, that's going to be expensive. That's going to be really expensive. So is PlayStation and Xbox, are they going to wait one more year and say, all right, we're not doing the Slims anymore. We're just going to do a Pro model, and that Pro model is going to be $700. Is that the call?
Even if they take a loss on it, Miles, even if they swallow a big chunk of the cost more than usual, you're still probably looking at a $600 console.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think that's a tough ask. I could be wrong.
Because we've talked. Xbox knows. Everyone knows that barrier, a $500 barrier, is going to stop. I would say the majority. If we're looking at statistics, the majority of people who play video games, as we look at just not the console space, but the entire video game industry, the majority of people statistically will not spend $500 to buy a console. They won't. And we've seen Xbox talk about the console market shrinking and their position in the console market, and they're struggling in the console market. So they're in a weird position where they need to cater to longtime fans who want the premium experience. They've banged the hardware, the power drum for so long at this point that they don't have the option to not have it anymore, really. or what's the selling point? Just being brutally honest about the state of Xbox. If they don't have the power position, they have the Series S and Xbox Game Pass, which is the value position, and maybe they just lean entirely into that. But when it comes to this hypothetical scenario where PlayStation 5 launches a Pro, Xbox, unfortunately, regardless of the cost, will need to do something. Otherwise, like you said, if they have to wait 3-4 years, where we're already seeing people point out the fact that some PlayStation games some games run better on PS5 than Series X. That's already something that gets pointed out frequently. Ghostwire Tokyo, but Tango Gameworks is owned by Xbox right now, and the Xbox version looked worse and performed worse. It's if your own internal studios aren't able to utilize this power that you've messaged and talked about for years. This is the most, again, they didn't say the world's most powerful console with the Series X. That is an important piece of misinformation I see people share frequently, is that, Xbox Series X is supposed to be the world's most powerful console. They technically never said that. They never threw that market. That was the Xbox One X. But that being said, they banged that power drum fierce with the Series X. So it is interesting. Everything, I think, is up in the air. It's hard for me to imagine that either PlayStation or Xbox has that Pro model fully dialed in terms of when it's launching, what the price is going to be, and what the power upgrade is going to be.
I 100% agree with you. I think, Miles, at the start of this generation, back in 2020, maybe even shortly into 2021, I think PlayStation absolutely intended to launch a PS5 Pro next year. Now, it could happen. It could happen.
Let me pose a question to you and the audience here regarding all of this. Let's say Pro models come out and they are $700. PS5 Pro and Xbox Series X Elite, or whatever they decide to call it, are $700. Are you buying one?
No, not at 700.
That's a it's
I'd
a
say
big
I
ask.
will do it at 600. I'm dumb enough to do it at 600 on both of them, but 700, no. I tap out at that point.
Silent Cypher, a quick aside. He did touch on the quote that I do love. This thing eats monsters for breakfast, which
Yeah.
you know, it hasn't aged well for some. $700 for me. I'm dumb, so I'd do it personally. But
Okay.
I recognize that I am an extreme, just fraction of a percentage of the audience, because I love new iterations of consoles. I always buy them. I'm the dummy who bought like every variant of the DS and every variant of the 3DS. So I'm just a sucker for new hardware iterations. So if a PS5 Pro drops and I bought the Switch OLED as a prime example. I already had a regular Switch, but I bought the OLED. So if that happens and it's $700, yeah, I'm figuring out some way, selling a kidney or whatever I need to do to figure that out and secure that. But again, that's not the average person. I'm not the average person. So it's tough for me to speak to what the average person would want. I think the fact that, Xbox right now is focusing more on the Series S in terms of retail sales, in terms of getting new people in the door, says a lot about their strategy and how they view the Series X. So it really makes me wonder, again, in the hypothetical scenario of PlayStation launching a Pro, if Xbox does anything. And I do wonder if they maybe once had plans but have scrapped plans. And then if those, again, this isn't something you can whip up in a couple weeks.
No, you gotta be planning for a long time.
So in a world where maybe PlayStation commits to the plans and Xbox doesn't, and then they have to scramble to answer, I do wonder what that's going to mean for Xbox's already, struggling console share. And we know consoles aren't the only factor of success for Xbox. They're going to PC, they're going to mobile, they're going to cloud. But they have also said that console is important to them, and it is a focus of their business. So I don't know, Sam. I have a lot of questions. I have way more questions this time around than a few years ago. I think.
I think. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say. I think a few years ago it was kind of predictable as to what this would look like.
I think Microsoft might have a couple more questions than Sony, but I think at the end of the day, both of them have an uphill burden. They have an uphill struggle trying to sell these things. If this is how it plays out, that's where I'm at.
Yes, I agree. But I'm curious. I'm interested to see what that'll look like. I'm a bad target when it comes to asking these questions because I'm ready to buy that Project Q. Despite the fact that it looks ugly, it looks just so
$300
weird.
No cloud gaming.
It could be $300. Yeah, not native. Again, I'm a bad target for these things, but I'm a sucker for some hardware. All right, let's go. Give me some new weird hardware. One final topic for today's show here, and this will be a quicker one. We're almost done with the Xbox versus FTC.
Yeah,
it's saga. The whole Xbox trying to buy ABK the last 18 months. Regardless of how you feel about whether the deal is going to go through or not, we'll all be able to look back and say, wow, that was an awful time to be on social media. So a lot of us, I think, are ready for it to be done either way. At this point, I think either way, we're ready for it to be done. And it sounds like if this preliminary injunction is granted, that it will be done. This will be done. And if it isn't, I think, again, Microsoft is going to just go to close it as fast as they possibly can. That being said, given everything, because you and I were both listening to the riveting courtroom hearing.
Interesting discussions
about, Microsoft's case and the FTC's case and how the judge felt about all of this. So based on what we know, where do you think how do you think this all ends? Do you think that the injunction is granted? Do you think Microsoft gets the pass and closes the deal? Where are you at right now with all of this?
I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. Haven't passed the bar. Haven't done anything like that. Just a guy listening in. I don't see how it's granted based on the arguments that were made. That's where I'm at. I could be wrong. I could very, 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 very easily be wrong. Maybe one tiny little thing stuck in that judge's brain, and she's just like, I know they said they're walking away, but better safe than sorry. We're granting it. Maybe that happens. I don't think it's going to. I just, looking at the arguments, looking at how unhappy she was with the lawyers, looking at the questions she asked to understand the industry better, I think, and knowing as well that the FTC has already scheduled Microsoft to come talk to them in August in their internal court and their whole song and dance routine, I think she's going to deny the preliminary injunction. That is where I'm siding myself on the coin toss, is the way I'll put it.
Yeah, I'm really conflicted because I agree that the FTC didn't make an outstanding case regarding all of this, and they fixated way too heavily on Call of Duty and exclusivity and ignored the history of exclusivity in the games industry and ignored PlayStation.
Some exclusives are good, Miles. Some of them are good.
And ignored PlayStation and Nintendo and everyone else who's been doing it and building entire reputations and businesses off of those practices. That element of the case to me was incredibly weak. Incredibly, incredibly weak. There were moments during this where I thought, okay, maybe the FTC could have done a better job, especially in the cloud segment, because I think cloud was the most obvious question mark in terms of competition, the most genuine question mark about competition. And we know Microsoft has been downplaying cloud heavily. It's in their best legal interest to downplay cloud heavily, if we're just being truthful with ourselves here. So they've been trying to say, oh, it's nothing. It won't be anything. People prefer to engage with XYZ. If it's nothing, why on earth are you spending that much money invested? Why are you prioritizing the cloud over Xbox Series consoles?
Right.
So it's not nothing from their long-term business strategy. It's not. And so when the judge is basically pointing out the fact that, yo, why wasn't Google in on this deal? Why wasn't Amazon in on this deal? Why wasn't Apple in on this deal? You're giving Call of Duty and Activision titles to a lot of people, and that's cool. But your biggest and most obvious competition, notably, is not part of this deal. Yeah. And I think that right there was that is where the FTC could have made a great case and said, hey, Microsoft understands what this will be. Microsoft understands that Apple, Google, and Amazon are their best competition right now. And
maybe not Google anymore, but yes.
Yeah, Google. We all know what happened with Stadia. They don't really have anyone to blame but themselves. But now YouTube is offering game streaming. Mm-hmm. YouTube is going to be offering game streaming. I don't see a world where Microsoft says, hey, guess what? You can stream Call of Duty to YouTube. I don't see that happening. So I think that was always their best case for this to go through. They didn't do a great job presenting it. But that being said, the fact that the judge acknowledged the fact that the biggest competition wasn't involved with these deals, that was one moment where I was like, oh, okay, maybe she is, maybe she does have some questions about what this can mean. And I thought she did a great job trying to be up to speed and trying to understand what these deals mean, what Game Pass means, how the industry operates. But overall, I think the FTC's case was weak. That being said, and this is a cop-out answer, I could really see it going either way at this point.
That is a cop-out answer.
It's a big cop-out answer, but I'm genuinely 50-50 at this point. I could see it going through because the FTC's case was weak, but then I could see that cloud segment and that cloud argument, even though it was weak, the judge seemed to understand. She even at one point said, you guys are bringing up consoles, but, consoles aren't going to be around forever. So she understands, where the industry is moving. And those comments from the judge made me feel like, oh, okay, well then, as much as Microsoft is downplaying the cloud, maybe she's not going to let that slide. And so again, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge, like you said, but I do think there is a genuine world where the preliminary injunction is granted. I'm not saying that that's where I lean, but I at this point, I wouldn't be shocked if that happens. And so if that happens, the deal's dead. Blizzard already said they're walking away. Microsoft's going to have to pay $3 billion. And while we're on this conversation, let's go with that hypothetical. The deal's dead. The deal is completely dead. What does Microsoft do from there? What's the play? If you're Big Papa Phil, you're sitting down with the executive leadership board, you just had your $69 billion deal that you spent 18 months, and I can't even fathom how much money on lawyers. That's blown up. What do you do from there?
I think you have to reinvest in what you have. I think you have to look at what you have and say, okay, how can we buff this up? How can we make it so this team can get games out faster? Do we expand them? Do we give them a second studio, a third studio, a fourth somewhere else? I think you have to look at what you have and invest. And I think your purchases have to be very tiny from there on out. Because and this is my personal issue, but I'll try not to get too far in on that. If cloud is the denying factor, then scale isn't the issue. You can be denied any kind of publisher at that point. It doesn't matter.
That's like the scary thing about the cloud argument is that.
And that's why I don't like it, but I don't want to get too far into that. I think you can no longer depend on that route of, oh, we acquired ZeniMax Media and we just sort of put this publisher right next to Xbox Game Studios. That cannot be what you do anymore. You have to buff up what you actually have. What that looks like, I don't know. They had a whole list. Go back and pick from some of that.
Yeah, the annoying thing for, I think, a lot of fans is that during this 18 months, they could have easily scooped up so many developers and smaller publishers without anyone even batting an eye. Like, so the fact that they went from Bethesda, which was a big one, to Activision, which was a gargantuan one. Mm-hmm. I know it was like we all understand it was an opportunity. It was
it wasn't in their original plans. That's why Activision Blizzard wasn't in there. It just suddenly opened up. We get that.
It became a very lucrative possibility. So I understand the reasons they jumped on it, but I think that if this doesn't go through, that is so much lost time and resources. That is such a setback. And it's not going to derail their plans. They're not going to go bankrupt. They're not going to implode. But it is a huge setback because they weren't investing that money during that time in anything. That money was set aside. That money could not be used. That money could not be spent. It was just sitting there. So there was 18 months where $69 billion wasn't being invested in video games for Xbox. And then on the other side, to have $3 billion of that just gone, just poof, you don't get that. That's nothing. And then to know that that time was just lost, that's a hit. That's a huge hit. And that would be, again, not a deal breaker or a destructive force, but this whole deal has been such a distraction for Xbox's momentum. All of their key leadership, all of their energy has been spent on this deal. And so it would just be this moment where momentum was lost significantly. And then we just have to, wait to see what that looks like on the other side. And we have big games coming, thankfully. Stuff like Starfield. As long as Starfield hits, as long as Hellblade hits, as long as Avowed hits, it won't really matter in the short term. But I do wonder long term what their strategy will be. Because they could have bought, considering they're standing in Japan, they could have bought a public, like a Sega or a Capcom.
Well, I'm not sure they could have because of the cloud thing. That's my issue there, is like any publisher can just be denied because, well, look, at cloud gaming is the future.
I'm just saying, do you think there would be as much of a legal circus, though? Do you think there would be as many people? Honestly, Miles, yes, I do. It is with the FTC, maybe not worldwide, with the FTC specifically, yes. I absolutely believe there would be as much. I don't think this is about the price tag, although that certainly makes it eye-watering and, salivating for regulators. That's why it's been more of a struggle worldwide. But the FTC right now is just going after big tech because you are big tech. I think this FTC, Miles, would have tried to stop Bethesda. I firmly believe that. So we'll see. Yeah, because a lot of it has been obviously from the headlines and the conversation, the Call of Duty noise and the weight of Activision IP, and just again the dollar amount, I think, is a big factor of why so many eyeballs and there's so much scrutiny on this. And now there will forever be scrutiny on Xbox. So every single deal moving forward for Xbox is going to be this, which again is probably going to discourage, because I see people saying, well, if this doesn't go through, they're going to instantly go buy Sega and Capcom. I don't know. Like, I don't know that they're after this, after going through 18 months with no payoff, you immediately turn around and try to do that again? Or do you just call up every single publisher on the earth and say, give us exclusives? But like, here's a check.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it, because if they lose this, let's say the deal is dead, right? It is deader than dead. It's deader than disco. It's vinyl, but there's no comeback in the 21st century, right? Like, they have been told that they should do business like PlayStation, right? Am I misinterpreting that?
Yep,
Am I misinterpreting that they basically been told, like, no, you should be doing the Final Fantasy 16 deal? So I don't like it, but if this deal dies, maybe that's what they have to do.
Yeah, again, exclusives primarily benefit the platform holder. They don't often benefit us. Like, that's not how they're designed. And so again, I don't love exclusives from anyone necessarily, but we know that's the way PlayStation operates. We know that's the way Nintendo operates. I buy PlayStation machines. I buy Nintendo machines for the exclusives. There's always a game that makes me want to buy one of those machines. And so what if Xbox just picks up the phone and calls Capcom and says, yo, we know you're working on the next Resident Evil. How much money do you want? Like, but let's get stupid with it. We have 66 billion that we can spend. Yeah. Let's get stupid. We want full exclusivity for the next Resident Evil game. And they could, again, I don't know that Capcom per se would be interested because they're very strong. So this offer hypothetically would need to be just stupid, just unreasonable for Capcom to consider it. But, you know, maybe Microsoft says, all right, if this is the way the industry is going to be, this is the way we need to move some consoles. Hey, Capcom, what do you got cooking? Hey, Square Enix, what do you got cooking? Hey, Activision, what do you got cooking? Because I'm sure, you know, Activision, they want this deal to go through as well. So if this deal blows up for them, you know, there's maybe some incentive for Activision to, you know, work some deals that maybe since PlayStation was such a thorn in their side, you know, as long as it's lucrative for Activision, because that needs to be the big thing, is maybe they work out some deals with them on some of their titles. And again, we don't know what this is going to look like, but I do wonder how Microsoft would react and respond if this deal doesn't go through. Or do they just lick their wounds, retreat into the shadows, and just wait for their games to hit?
We'll find out.
We'll find out. Maybe on Monday. That's the current speculation. Maybe. Is this Monday we'll get the answer. And again, it would be cool to have Activision games in Game Pass. As an Xbox fan, dope. Let's go. I would love that. I think that would be great. I think that would be a benefit to a lot of people. But right now, I don't care how it ends. I just want it to end. It's been so annoying. It has been such a exhausting saga for everyone involved. So we're almost there, Sam. We are almost done, and I cannot wait. And with all of that, I want to give a huge shout out to everyone who is tuning in live. Appreciate all of you. If you've been digging the show, hit that like button. I will be providing a quick update on my family medical situation. But before I do that, Sammy T, let everyone here know where they can find you. And thank you for joining me on this Saturday and talking about video games. One of my favorite things to do.
I mean, always, dude. Anytime you ask and you come ask me, I'm going to say yes. It's just, I'll make time for you. Always, bro. So you can find me on Twitter at Samuel Tolbert. If you want a different option, because God knows how long Twitter's going to be around and things are getting interesting. I hope you've been rationing your viewed tweets. Like it's wartime, Miles. It's total war. We are in wartime economy mode. You can only view so many tweets. God almighty, it's asinine. So if you want to find me elsewhere on a different platform besides Twitter, I am at Samuel Tolbert on Blue Sky, so you can find me there, and then at Sam Tolbert 484 on Threads. So you can find me in those places outside of Twitter, but you can still find me on Twitter and until the Titanic goes down. Right?
That's where I'm at. I'm going to be on Twitter until it goes down, if it goes down, whatever.
we'll play the violins on the deck together, right, Miles?
Exactly. Going down with the ship. But that being said, yes, I have jumped on Threads, so I guess I should plug that. If you want to follow me over there, it's Miles Dompier as well. So I've secured Miles Dompier on all the other social media apps. So if you're on any of the other ones, just look for me there. But yeah, that whole saga has been another interesting development that I'm very curious to see how that all plays out. Yeah, so I guess a quick update from me in terms of what's been going on. I posted a little bit about this online, but I haven't said too much, and I probably won't say too much after this. But my father was recently diagnosed with type 4 pancreatic cancer. So we got the news a couple weeks ago. So he's been in and out of hospitals dealing with that, running a bunch of tests, going through the gauntlet to see what our options are for surgery and treatment and all of that. And I will just say the most recent development there is very grim, unfortunately for us and him and our family. We more or less got the word that the options have been depleted in terms of what we can do. So we are in the stages of making him comfortable and spending as much time with him as we can in the next couple weeks, which we don't know exactly what that all looks like. But so that's where we're currently at. So it's been a very, very rough time for me and the family. So a lot of people have reached out via DMs and via messages and social media to share support and kind words. And I just want to say thank you for all of that. Like that energy and goodwill means a lot right now as we kind of deal with the updates, but yeah, that's where we're at. But that's all I got in terms of updates there, but appreciate all of you. And yeah, I guess with that, bummer of a news, we're going to wrap up this episode of Xbox Chaturdays. So thank you all so much for the support and have an amazing weekend. Take care, everybody.
Take care, y'all.